Okay, so the Mercury and NextGen integration webinar, this is what we will be covering this morning. I'll be giving you a look at Apply Online, NextGen/Apply Online. We'll have a look at how Mercury and Apply Online actually work together, so how they integrate and how you can move data between from Mercury to Apply Online and vice versa. We'll actually jump into Apply Online and I'll show you how you work through the application there and get it ready to submit, and we'll touch on one or two common problems you may encounter when working in Apply Online. Firstly, let's just touch on what is Apply Online. It is a software platform provided to us by a company called NextGen. That is poignant. What that means is that we, Connective, don't actually develop Apply Online. It is developed by another company. We pay them for the ability to access their system. It is a system which integrates with Mercury and lender systems, so it sits between Mercury and the lenders and allows you to push data from Mercury into Apply Online and then actually submit from Apply Online to the lender and get a response back in sort of 60 seconds type thing. It provides a data validation system, so it actually tells you what data is required by the lender and will point out if there's anything missing. The last point, NextGen provide 4 major releases per year. I believe they are revisiting this, but traditionally they will only put out 4 major releases per year, which means if ever there's a change required, you might not actually see that change reflected for a couple of months. But I believe NextGen are actually revisiting this policy to look at more frequent releases. So we'll jump into Apply Online now, in Mercury rather, and what I'll do here in Mercury is I'll show you how the Mercury side of things works, how you can actually push data into Apply Online, then we'll jump into Apply Online and have a look at how you work in it there. So it's fairly straightforward. I'm just going to open up one of our test records that we have here, and I'm going to pretend that we've been through all of this entire application. We've filled it all out. You can see we have calculations and assets and liabilities and contacts. There are 3 applicants and a referrer. So there's lots of data here. So you've worked through Mercury and we've actually got this ready to submit to Apply Online. Now it's fairly simple to do that. You click on Start Apply Online Application up here. What that's going to do is it's going to open Apply Online. It's going to push all this data across. But importantly, it's going to open the application which relates to the lender you have set here. So each lender has their own requirements in NextGen. So they tell NextGen, this is how we want our form set out, this is the sort of data we must get, and this is how we want it. So when you actually open the opportunity or the record in Apply Online, it's going to open to a lender-specific one, and in this case it would be ANZ because that's who we have selected here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this Start Apply Online button, and what we'll see is we'll see Internet Explorer open up into Apply Online with the application. I'll click back on Mercury, and what we'll get here is an ID number, so this will populate automatically for us, and we can then work in it. So click on Start Apply Online Application. You can see the little clock going around, so it's having a think about things, and it's packaging up all the data. Let's allow it, and you can see it's now opened up Connective Broker and Apply Online. In a minute we'll get our new ANZ application. And there it is. So we can see the lender that we're going to up here in the top right-hand corner. This is an ANZ application. I'm going to jump back into Mercury for a second, and we'll touch on a couple of other things there before we actually work through this application in Apply Online. You can see there, Apply Online ID, MER 0052079. So that is the unique identification which links Mercury with the application in Apply Online. Save and exit out of this. What I also want to show you is how you can get into Apply Online from the dashboard, and it's fairly straightforward. You simply click on this Apply Online tile over here. So when you click on that, you can see it opens up Apply Online to, I suppose you would call it the Apply Online dashboard. We can have a look at recent lodgements, and you can just click on one of these. There's the one that we just created. You can click on one of these to get to it. Alternatively, you can do a search. We'll go through these options up here a little bit later on. So into Apply Online now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of this application. I'm going to show you how you actually get it ready to submit. There are 5 tabs along the top here, and you can see there's a big red cross next to each one. What that is essentially saying is there are some details on one of these particular tabs which requires some attention. Under the summary page, we'll have a quick look through all the different fields on the summary page. You can see here we have the application summary where we've got the ID, that's that link to Mercury, the loan, so the amount, and here are our 3 applicants with some of their contact details and so on. There's the security property. Going down, there's the lender, the BSB of the branch to sign documents at. The application number and submission ID will be populated once the loan has actually been sent to the lender and gets a response. One of the, if not the single most important point in Apply Online or section in Apply Online. In this case, the approved originator details, it might be called the broker details, could be called all sorts of different things. This here is what links the broker with this application and therefore the commission payment. Very, very important to check these. Now they will generally fill automatically from either Mercury or the Apply Online system depending on how it's been created. Once you actually submit a loan to a lender with your broker code in it, it's meant to save it, but again, it all depends on the lender and where that particular data comes from as to whether or not it will be saved. I cannot stress to you enough how important it is to check these details before you submit the loan every single time. This is the only thing which links the broker to the application in the lender's eyes. It doesn't matter, nothing else matters. It all comes down to, in this particular case, the AO and SAO number. If you submit a loan and those details are wrong, it's going to link this loan with whoever those particular details belong to. It has happened a couple of times, and I can tell you the process to have it rectified is long and tiresome. Every single time you submit an application, the last thing you should do is check that the broker ID, the originator ID, the SAO, AO number, whatever it's called, is correct for the broker who belongs to this application. Very, 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 very important that you do that. All of these details under here can actually be wrong. At the end of the day, it comes back to that number right there and who the lender believes that belongs to. So please always check that before you submit the application. Legal representation, accountant details, and another very important field is the comment section. Now the brokers are meant to be compelled to read the comments section. So what we do down here is you put in any very important details which relate to this particular opportunity that you want the lender to know. Some examples. Every now and then you might come across an address that is a little bit unusual. For example, we had one just the other day where the street type was a turn. So I think it was, just off the top of my head, number 19 Parkway Turn. Turn is not a supported street type in Apply Online. So what you have to do in that case is put in 16 Parkway Street, and what you do here in comments is you just clarify. Please note, employer's address is actually 16 Parkway Turn, not street, -turn, not supported by your application. Something like that. Clarify any details. Also build your case. Applicant is self-employed plumber, has 13 years of solid income history, something like that. Anything that is going to A, clarify, and B, support the application, put here into the comments. The lenders are supposed to read the comments if it ever goes to referred. For example, if you are doing low doc, there's a good chance that might go to referred. If you're doing a loan for, say, above $1 million, there's a good chance that'll go to referred. If that's the case, they're meant to read the comments. If you put some vital information in there and the loan gets knocked back because they didn't read it, well, you have a little bit of recourse to go back and say, hang on, I told you, you've delayed the loan now by 2 weeks, and I told you that this was a detail, so let's work it out. So comment section, very, very, very important to an application. As important or almost as important as getting the originator number or the broker ID correct. Applicant details, fairly straightforward. There's nothing really out of the ordinary here that we need to go into. It's all very, very simple and straightforward. So scrolling down, we'll just have a bit of a look at some of the details. All the applicant details, so names, numbers, a few other details here about marital status and is it a first home buyer or customer of lender and things like that. Addresses, so you've got residential addresses. If it's less than 2 years, you'll need a previous address as well. Mailing address, very important. Employment section, again, all fairly straightforward, nothing really rocket science about all of this. You can add more details as well. So let's say employment section, for example. Again, if it's been, I think, less than a certain time, you might need to add a second employment section in, and you can do that. You can see there, it'll add new employment section. So under most sections, you'll see an add new scrolling up. Not applicant, you can do a new applicant from up here. You can also delete, so let's say we added a new ID and we wanted to delete one, you can delete it with a little trash can. You can see the trash can to the right of most of these sections, or just next to the name there. So if you want to delete, look for the little trash can. Now what we're actually going to do, I'm going to just get rid of the other two borrowers. You can see there's a drop-down menu at the top, and again, if you have multiple borrowers, this will be here. If you have multiple loans, multiple securities, there'll be this extra on here. If you want to add a borrower, now we're actually in the apply online, you can do that by clicking new. But I'm just going to get rid of two of these three applicants, because what we're going to do, we're actually going to work through borrower 1, and we're going to try and get this particular page ready to submit. So what do you want to do here when you're in apply online? The whole goal of apply online or here is to get rid of these red crosses everywhere. Once you do that, the red cross up here on applicants should turn into a tick, which tells you this tab is ready to submit. So we'll work through Mr. Smith Kenneth. And if you're not sure what the issue is, mouse over the red cross and you'll see it'll actually tell you what's going on. So applicant role is a co-applicant. This person is now the only applicant, so he must be the primary applicant. Scrolling down, gender, so we have set no gender. Let's make him a male. Now what you'll see occasionally are these little orange exclamation marks. What that means is it's bringing your attention to a field that while it won't stop the loan from submitting, you may want to have a look at it anyway. So we could submit this with these orange exclamation marks here, but apply online is saying, look, these are pretty important. You haven't got them set correctly. You might want to have a look. In this case, what we need to do is set the residency status. Let's say he's a citizen, and that will actually fix up both of those. Over here, marital status. Let's mouse over that. If marital status of applicant is married or de facto, there must be a valid spouse entered as a non-loan party. So because we've only got the one person in here, he can't be married, so what we're going to do is actually put him in as single. Residential address, that's not correct. Let's pick a different one. So what I'm going to do is click on edit, and I'm going to, not that one, I'm going to delete this address because it's not correct. So select addresses, scrolling down, we want to get rid of this address because it's not complete and it's not relevant. Okay, now we want to select the residential address. There we go, 16G1 Court. Current address since, and we'll go back a few years so we don't have to put in a secondary address. There we go. Oops. And you can even click on the actual address to get that correct. There it is. So employment section, there are some issues here. Applicant must have one and only one primary employment selected. So we have a primary employment. What was the start date? Again, I'm going to go back a few years so as we don't have to put in a second employment. What is the role? To get the role, we look up the code by clicking on the little magnifying glass. Nothing in help desk. Let's make him a truck driver. There we go. He's a heavy truck driver. Income, gross, monthly. Let's say monthly is a nice round figure of 10 is gross. Net is going to be $8,000. It's not bad. $2,000 a week. Being a truck driver. Employer is connective. Foreseeable changes to circumstance. Do you know of any changes in your ability to make repayments without financial difficulty? No. Have we signed a credit authority? Yes. Let's say yes. Check that box. So we've been through, we've had a look at all the little red crosses. How did we go? What we want to do now is scroll back up the top and click on validate. And it's going to go through this form, have a check of every field and see if there's anything that requires some work. So we've still got a couple of things. No ID. Employer type is required. You must provide the address of employer 1. Close that down. Let's scroll down and there we go. So PAG employer type, let's say is private. So we don't have an address on connective. Let's click on edit and let's put in an address and we'll just use one that we've already got in there. And I'm pretty sure it's going to require a phone number as well. That's right, that'll do. and click on OK. No ID, let's add an identification, driver's license, date of issue, expiry date can be next year sometime, or next month, place issued Victoria. Right, now let's try again, let's hit a validate. There we go. We've got a green tick here, which means we have a green tick here. So this tab is now all set and ready to go. So scrolling down, you can see no more little red crosses anywhere, or exclamation marks for that matter. So that's, I guess, your ultimate goal in Apply Online, is to move through each of these tabs and get them all ready by getting the green tick. We'll have a look at these last three, just some of the details in here. Click on Loan Details. So this is the details of all the loans and all splits. So we only have the single loan here. Some fields require some attention here. Scrolling down, deposits and contributions. So if the borrower is putting anything in, any features. Now features can be a tricky one, and it can actually stop applications from submitting in some circumstances. ING is one in particular. What you actually need to do in an ING application is you need to add in the 4 features that are available. I think there's an offset, rate lock, 2 other things. And you actually need to tell, you're essentially telling ING that you have actually discussed them with the client. So let's just pretend this was ING. We'd add in some more. We'd actually go down to all the 4 different options, and we would say no. If this was rate lock, what we'd actually say in the option is no rate lock required. If this was offset, we'd say no offset required if that were the case. What that is saying is, yes, I've spoken to the client about offset and they've said no, they don't want it. Yes, we've spoken about rate lock, no, they don't want it, and the other 2 options as well. So in that particular case, you actually have to put the features in and say no, you don't want them. ANZ's not like that, so we'll leave the features there. So the loan products are down here, base amount 425, total amount there. Select the product again with the little magnifying glass. 30-year term. If it's fixed or interest only, we can put in, say, 5-year interest only. We'll leave the preferred payment amount blank. Request approval fee, so on and so forth. Lots of details, lots of details. We won't go too much into it. If your loan has more than 1 split, so let's say we're splitting it, you can click on loan product and you can actually add a second product in. So maybe they're going for a $75,000 line of credit. I do a line of credit here in ANZ. I'm sure there's one in there somewhere. You'd go through and you'd find the line of credit, if it is available in this case, and put it in there. So you've actually got the 2 different splits. Again, click on validate. It'll go through, do a check for you, and point out anything that requires some attention. Security tab. This is where we keep all the details of any and all security properties. Again, we only have the 1, but you can add a new one there. And all the details, again, fairly straightforward. So the security information, property details, what is the property type? It's just a fully detached house. Current value, estimated value, contract price. Please enter in the contract price. That is what the calculator will use to actually calculate the LMI if required. So, the LVR. So you need to put in a contract price. Estimated value is 55. We'll put in contract price of 55. Applicant estimate. That will actually be used to calculate the LVR. Location, pre-approval. Is it a pre-approval? Yes or no. Address, title, identification, i.e. Torrens, folio, plot, plan, etc., etc. That's for the title. Valuation, create online valuation request, yes or no. Contract access, details, so on and so forth. And if there's an existing mortgage, we can put that down there, so if it is a refinance. Again, all fairly straightforward. Finally, the financial position. So this is all of the financials of your applicants. Statement of position, is it included in the statement? It has to be, so you have to have done that, so you can check that off. Real estate assets, other assets, liabilities, incomes and expenses, all very straightforward. You can see it's populated in a lot of detail here. We put that in a little bit earlier on in the piece under the applicant. So there we have it. Again, click on the validate, it'll do a sweep and it'll show you what requires some attention. The whole goal is to get the 5 green ticks. Once you've done that, the loan is ready to submit. A couple of other things you might want to do before you do that. You can click on Loan Summary and it'll give you a one-page sheet just giving you a quick, and there it is there, a bit of a summary. So your applicants, the loans and all splits, security details, available equity, assets, liabilities, incomes and expenses. Yes, it's all good to go. What you do then, the client says, yep, let's submit it. Click on Submit. What it's going to do is 4 things, and of course I've got an error because the application is not ready. It'll prepare the documents, so it'll actually build all the required documents. It will do a final validation sweep to make sure everything is valid. Ours isn't. Hopefully yours would be, so you'll get a green tick. It'll push it across to the lender, and then it will wait for a success receipt, essentially. What you can then do is you can go to status tracking, and what it will do is it will build each event here. So there's our creation of this actual loan. Once you hit submit, you'll get another date timestamp. Event will be submitted to lender. Status submitted, performed by the person who did it. And then what you want to do is every 10 seconds, you can click on status tracking, and sometime within the next probably minute or 2, you will actually receive a response from the lender. Response can either be conditionally approved, which is the one we're hoping for, referred, which means it's been sent off to actually be eyeballed by a person. That will happen if it's it's a bit of a line ball low doc, for example, if there's a question over servicing or something like that. Also on large loans, most loans I think generally over $1 million will go through to referred always, or if it's going to be a tight run thing. The other 2 responses you might get is declined, so that is it's been through the lender system, it doesn't stack up, the lender's not interested. Or you might get an error of some sort. So there are a whole variety of errors you might receive. What we would advise you to do in that case, when you actually get an error message back, you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, just here, a little arrow. Click on that arrow and it will actually give you some details of the error. Click the arrow, have a look. If it makes sense to you, it might say street type on applicant 1, work address invalid. Well, you go to Applicants, Applicant 1, down to the work details, and double check the address to make sure street type's there. If it's a little bit of computer gibberish, you've got no idea what they're talking about, don't stress. In that case, go back to Mercury, put in a help desk ticket, give us the application ID, we'll have a look at it. Often we'll actually know what they're referring to so we can fix it. Otherwise what we'll do is we'll refer it onto NextGen to have a look at, and they generally get back to us fairly quick. Usually within a couple of hours with those particular types of issues. Alternatively, if it's a little bit of a nasty issue, they might have to refer it onto the lender, and that might take a little bit longer, but we'll keep you up to date, and as soon as we get a response back that it's been resolved, we'll let you know. So that's what might happen here under the status tracking. As I said, conditionally approved, referred, declined, or maybe some sort of data error. Now, on the data error side of things, actually, one other thing to point out, sometimes you might receive some sort of issue. You have a look at it and it says something along the lines of broker ID invalid, broker is inactive, invalid ID, so on and so forth. What that means, and this gets tricky for us, what that means is the lender has declined or has knocked back the accepting of the application because the ID that is on the application is not correct. What you need to do in that particular case, first and foremost, go back to the Summary tab, check your ID, make sure it is correct, make sure you've put the SAO number in, or you put the BK on the front of, I think, a Bank West application or something like that. Make sure there's enough digits, make sure it is yours, make sure there's not an invalid character. If you're absolutely certain that the code is correct, what you need to do is you need to contact the lender. Reason being, we simply cannot help you with it. It's completely out of our control, unfortunately. I wish it wasn't, but it is. When your code is incorrect, but you are absolutely certain that the code is correct, but it's coming back that it's invalid, you need to contact the lender. In most cases, what you will see is an application and or a submission ID. That means the lender has received the application. Unfortunately, a lot of the time you'll contact the lender and the person you speak to will go, no, we haven't received it, go back to Connective. They have received it, they're just being lazy. I hate to say it, I know you'll be shocked to hear, they're just being lazy and they're not looking, or they're not looking properly. They need to find the submission, which they will have on their system no matter how much they try to tell you they do not. And on that will be an explanation as to why the ID has been knocked back. It could be that it's invalid, it could be that there's a space where they shouldn't be, or there might be a problem with the lender system. Like I said, it's unfortunate that we can't help. We would love to in this particular case, because we do get a fair few of these, and it's very frustrating for us when our response has to be, look, this is something the lender has to take care of. We simply can't, but we don't have access to the lender systems. We can't look up why that lender code has been knocked back. If you get no love from the lenders, let us know. We'll try and assist where we can, but like I said, we're very, very limited on what we can do when it comes to an ID being incorrect. But that's essentially where we're at now. So let's pretend that the loan has been submitted successfully. Now, there are a couple of tabs over here that aren't used a terrible amount, aren't used much. Other products, if you wish to refer your client on for maybe loan and mortgage protection through ALI or something through BT Financial, you can do that here. You might be then in line for a commission should they receive anything. Otherwise, you can check no. Otherwise, you can actually leave it. It won't stop a loan from submitting. And you can also keep internal notes. Again, not widely used, but it is here. You can add new, put in a note. This does not go to the lender. This is just FYI. Along the top here, there are some icons. Save, so you get halfway through an application and you're shutting down for the night. You can save it. Once you have submitted the electronic submission, you still need to submit a paper application. So that's not the end of it. You need to then print out the lodgement pack, and you need to fax that into the lender, and so on. You can do that from here. You can see the different lodgement packs, application record, and a lot of different forms down here as well. Click on print. It'll open it a PDF. It'll fill out a lot of the details, but there might still be a few fields that require manual entry. Print it out, get it signed, fax it in with all of the other supporting docs. Show validation shows whether or not you have these ticks and crosses. I would recommend leaving it on so you can see if there's an issue. Submit obviously pushes it to the lender. View XML, disregard. That's generally used for troubleshooting by NextGen. Clone. Let's say we apply to ANZ and they actually knock the application back for whatever reason. You think the application still has legs, so you're going to try a different lender. Rather than starting from scratch, you can click on Clone. It will pop up a box just like this. Select the clone reason, put in a comment if you like, who is the broker and what is the lender you wish to try this time. So it's ANZ. We might be going with Citibank now. We'll click on Citibank and create, which I will actually do because there's one other key thing that will happen. And you can see we now have a Citibank application with most of the details carried across. Manual submission and trash buttons are there as well. If you need to do a manual submission, you can print out the docs there. And if you want to trash the application, you can click on trash. Now, the reason I did actually clone this application is I want to show you one other key feature, and this goes back to Mercury. So that's essentially how you complete and submit a loan in Apply Online. We'll have a look at these options up here in just a moment. But what I want to do is put us in a situation where we've cloned an application for, let's say, as I said, the loan was declined with ANZ, but Citibank have accepted it. We want to get this data into our Mercury so as we can keep a record of this application. Now, rather than keying it all in Mercury, we can actually backpopulate a lot of the data. The application must be submitted to the lender first, so this needs to have, you need to have clicked submit and got back some sort of positive submission response. It doesn't have to have been accepted, it can still be declined, but what that means is it has successfully gone through their system. Once you've got that, you can copy this application ID. So we highlight it, let's copy. Then we go back to Mercury. We want to add a new opportunity. And then you want to paste the ID into the ID field and click on Update from AOL. What that will do is it will pull back all of the data from Mercury, from Apply Online and put it into Mercury. It will pull back the contact data and it'll match them up with an existing contact if relevant, if appropriate, or it will create a new contact. You'll also pull back all of the assets and liabilities and a few other bits and pieces. So there is that Backpopulate feature as well, Update from AOL. As I said, you'll use that in a situation where you've pushed a loan across to apply online. Let's say it's been declined, so you've cloned it, and you now want to pull that cloned data back into Mercury for safekeeping. That's how you can do it. These last four options along the top, if you want to create a new application, you can do that. New home loan, you'll get a box just like the cloned box, allow you to select the lender, select the broker, create a new application, and again it will have an ID that looks somewhat like that. You can copy that and paste it back into Mercury and update if you require. You can view all of your applications, draft, submitted, or find all. There are some basic reporting tools. Please note they are what they are. If there's something they don't do that you would like them to do, we can't make them do that. They're provided by NextGen, and they're a bit of a bonus more than a key feature. So have a look at them. If they're useful for you, great. If not, unfortunately, there's no changes we can have made to them. And a few user account details. We can click on your settings, and there's some things we can change here. Just waiting for the box to pop up. From user account, we can modify our phone number, email address, and a few other bits and pieces. There it is there. So name, email address, any additional email addresses. So there's the broker's address. What we might want to do is every time we submit a loan for this broker, we actually want it to go to an admin person as well, or a generic admin box, and we can actually put that in as an additional email address. Contact, mobile, and fax numbers are there as well. We can change them by clicking on that little, you can see the icons active there, where the hand is next to your user settings. And so there we have it. That is the Apply Online webinar.